Hi, today we're going to have a look at how to beat the competition. And I'm going to show you why the best way to beat the competition is to completely ignore them and focus instead on your customer and the problems that they face. So, how to beat the competition. Here are my recommended 6 steps. 1. Understand your customers before worrying about understanding your competitors. 2. Be blisteringly clear about what problem you're solving for those customers, the market. 3. Be just as clear about who that problem most affects, because you should really only be targeting them. 4. Solve that problem better than any of your competitors. 5. Or find a niche for which you can. You may not be able to solve the problem for everybody better than your competitors, but there's got to be a sub-part of the market for which you can. And finally, communicate effectively so that your market knows why that's a problem they should be focusing on and why you solve it best. To get to this, I reviewed 5 articles, and let me show you those 5 articles now. So our first article is from American Express. It's Nellie Akalp, CEO and founder of CorpNet. Quite enjoyed the article. She concludes that there are 4 things that we should do. Identify gaps. If you like, that's a blue ocean rather than a red ocean. If you're a fan of that book, I'm not personally, but I get the idea. Create a customer-centric culture. Makes good sense. Don't compete on price. Look, I'm going to agree that it makes sense to argue that, but frankly, there's a time in the market where you absolutely should compete on price. I'm not going to go into a lengthy discussion around Jeffrey Moore's Chasm theory now, or even at the conclusions. I do that in so many of the other blogs. But frankly, there's a time when that's not such a great idea. And in a subsequent article one of the other articles I'm going to review today, I'll also explain that niching isn't always a great idea. Anyhow, remember that saturation can mean strength. Basically, go carve out a niche. I don't disagree with that. In fact, it's probably worth a read. I will put that on the probably go read that article. Let's move to our next. Lessons from Successful Entrepreneurs on How to Beat the Competition by Christopher Hahn. Full of good examples and ways to beat the competition, and I would again recommend that you read this article. Worth a read. I will give you a framework though at the end for choosing which of these ideas makes good sense and which of these ideas are not a great idea, depending on where your market's up to. There are no universal truths about strategy. It's all about it depends. However, I quite like the examples that they've given, and I recommend you have a read of that. Next one was 37 ways to beat your competition. Now, as you'd expect from a list of 37 articles, it's only going to be a laundry list, and it is. But that's okay, don't discount it. It's a great checklist. If you're in a strategic wrestle and you need to think about ways to beat your competition, after the recommendations that I've made, which are quite high, or I'm about to make at the end of the article, which are quite, let me say that again. At the end of today's show, I'm going to give you some concrete conclusions that I think you should follow. However, they are strategic. If you still need to go super tactical on your competitive strategy, go check out this laundry list. It is worthwhile for that purpose. So certainly I wouldn't suggest we discount its value, even though I'm not going to go through it today in detail. Article 4, Strategic Ways to Beat the Competition by Tato Phillips Jr. It's very much about customer intimacy. There are 5 recommendations: brand, cultivating an advantage, creating a database. Let me scroll down, catch up with my words. Create a database, communicate both with and to your consumers. He explains why he thinks that distinction is important. And then finally, excite your customers. Now, it's very consumer in its orientation, but the essence of his article is that it's about customer intimacy. Not necessarily one that you need to read. And unfortunately, this last article, which I'm showing you only because it got shared a lot rather than it came up on Google, I'm definitely not going to recommend because it's, well, A, it's very consumer. B, Fast Company at the time that I researched this were obviously having a problem with their website, and it's just given a really short article with no real essence. Comments are saying that it's wonderful. It's not, it's terrible. So don't bother. But let's work out what all of that means and then draw our own conclusions. Well, they were the articles that we looked at, and I'll give you my spin on what the actual answer is shortly. But first, let's honour what those 5 contributors have said. I'll try and synthesise that into a single argument about how to beat the competition. Find an underserved market, a blue ocean if you like. Be customer-centric for lots of reasons, but in particular so you can innovate better. Don't compete on price. Find a niche that you can own. Build a brand with positive resonance and associations. Cultivate a competitive advantage. Create a customer database, and to that database communicate both with and to your consumers, and excite your customers. There are 2 frameworks I'm going to use to explain how you should answer the question, how to beat your competition. The first is from Geoffrey Moore. Big fan of Geoffrey Moore. His Chasm theory helped us remind ourselves, helped us remember that we need to focus first on the customer, or in fact the whole market, and where is the market at, what are they ready for, and therefore what should our strategy be. And that holds true for every element of strategy, including competition. The second framework that I'm going to use is the buyer's journey. That's a term that I coined in 2003 in the leaky funnel, and essentially it was just reminding marketers that every tactic should be trying to move a buyer from somewhere to somewhere. Well, I thought it was just a tactical framework, but it turned out to have a big strategic impact, particularly understanding the importance of knowing the problem that you solve for your market and how to solve that better than your competition. So, what does that boil down to? Understand your customers before worrying about understanding your competitors. Be blisteringly clear about what problem you're trying to solve for the market. And 3, be just as clear about who that problem most affects, because that's your target. Solve that problem better than your competitors. Now notice that this is the first point where the competitors even come in, and it's not so much don't do what they're doing or do something better, it's solve the customer's problem better. It's all about the customers. And 5, if you can't do that for the whole market, then find a niche for which you can. I simply cannot accept anybody's argument that they are unable to beat the competition. You always can, just not for everybody necessarily. Find a part of the market for which you can, and then focus on that market, dominate that market. And 6, don't just do all that strategically, communicate. Communicate to that new market, that niche, whoever it is, so that they buy into the fact that this is the problem they should be focused on, and of course, why you solve it the best, and that's where the journey comes in. I hope you got a lot out of that. I enjoyed today. I'm a big fan of Geoffrey Moore's work, and in particular, reminding us where we need to focus our attention. So I hope you got some value out of that. Now, if you did, the chances are good that you'll enjoy our other shows. We do one every week on strategic and tactical matters related to filling the funnel. So if you haven't already, can I invite you to subscribe? There are 2 ways to do that. Go to mathmarketing.com/blog, or go to youtube.com/mathmarketing, whichever way you prefer. And whichever of those that you choose, we'll send you a notification as soon as the newest shows come out. They come out every week. So do that now. If you have already done that, then can I invite you to share it with a friend for pretty obvious reasons. We do this for free every week. It's a fairly big investment on our part, and the way that you can help us continue to fund that investment is by sharing this with colleagues that you know. So I'd be so grateful if you do that. And if you've done both of those, then there's one final thing that you can do. Tell us what you'd like us to research and cover. Using this email address, go to funnelvision@mathmarketing.com and let us know a topic that you'd like us to research. That's it. Lots more lined up for next week. Until then, may your funnel be full and always flowing. Our thanks this week to Stuart Williams for research. The 5 authors, Nellie Akalp, Smarter.com, Christopher Hahn, sorry, skipped him, Tydo Phillips, Mark Wilson. Thank you also to Annika Dobby for her amazing production, and my name is Hugh McFarlane. It was my absolute pleasure to script and present this week's show.